All right, welcome. This is Lab3 for AZ-204. And in this lab, we're going to learn how to use blob storage. And in this course, we, of course, are not concentrating on how to use blob storage from the portal itself, but rather from code. So I'm here in my pre-configured lab environment. And first thing that we need to do is we need to create a storage account. So just do that over here on the portal side. Create storage account. Storage media resource group. And then the account name should be media store, followed by something somewhat random. We're happy with East US, standard performance. And then we're just going to change this to locally redundant storage, as this is only a lab. We don't really need things to be that complicated. Note that in this lab, we won't allow enabling anonymous access to be on. So turning that on over here. And then otherwise we should be okay. So we can go to review and create. And then create. So great, that has been created. Now, a couple of things that we need to get from here. First thing that we need is from the settings section down here. We need the endpoints part. And specifically, we need to get the blob service endpoint. So this URL here. It should be your service name.file blob.core.windows.net. Just copy pasting it down, putting it over into Visual Studio into a new file. Oops. Then another thing that we need is in the security and networking section, access keys. And we want to get both the name of the storage account name, well, it's already basically in that URL, and then a access key. I always use the top one. Here. All right. So we also need some content in our storage account. So let's go over to containers and create one. Name should be raster graphics and it should be private. And then we're going to create another one for compressed audio, and that one should be private as well. So let's go into the raster graphics container here and then just upload a file. The file is pre-downloaded. It's available on the GitHub link of these labs. So this is lab number 3. Starter and image is supposed to graph.jpg. Okay, let's upload. And that is there. Okay. So now we're ready to work with our code. Now I want to open a folder I don't want to lose that stuff, so maybe I put it into, copy it, and then open my folder. And again, I want to go to Labs3 starter blob manager. Okay, so I'm going to create a new file here just for my storage. And then you can see that this is empty currently. So we're working with .NET here. So the way to basically initialize a project is using the .NET command. So we're going to go to .NET new console, and then from framework we want to have .NET 8, and then we're going to call it blob manager. Anything else? Put it here. Okay, so that's going to create a new project for us, including all of the skeleton stuff that is required. Then, because we're going to work with blobs, we're going to need the relevant SDK from Azure. So we're going to use .NET add package azure.storage blobs. And for this particular lab, we're going to use a specific version called 12.18.0. So there we go, stuff gets installed. And then let's just do a first build to see that everything is okay. All right, everything seems to be working. Let's get rid of that. And let's take a look at our code. So this is not doing anything currently, right? Just a placeholder. So let's remove the existing code and then add the code given in the lab instruction. So what does this do? We're first taking a couple of imports from Azure Storage Blobs. And then basically we're setting some preferences for us. Okay, so first, let's update this blob service endpoint. This is the first value we copied. This one. There we go. Then the storage account name. And then finally the storage account key. There we go. There we go. So then let's add some actual functionality. Again, this comes directly from the lab instructions. Okay, so what does this do? Well, it first of all creates a storage shared key credential. Let's take a quick look here based on the storage account name and the key. Then it creates a client object based on the endpoint. And then it gets the account information from the account that we're connecting to. And then it basically writes out, a nice hello, as well as the storage account name, and then the kind and SKU name of the storage account that it just downloaded. So let's try that out. Let's get ourselves a terminal. And then run. And you can see that it found the account name. The account kind was storage v2, and the SKU was standard with locally redundant storage. Great. So let's do something else. So let's add a new task. Again, formatting. Oops. No. There we go. Enumerate containers, right? So this takes a client as a parameter, and then what we want to do is get the containers in that storage account, and then run a for each loop over those containers, and for each container write out the name of that container. Okay, so let's add that, or calling that task to the end of our main task. There we go, and then we need to give the client, oops. Service client, right, as a parameter. That's cool. Okay, so let's save this and then get ourselves a terminal again. That seemed to work. So note that it listed both of the containers that we had created in our storage account. That's cool. So next, let's add again something to our code. So I need to get rid of this for space. So we have enumerate containers. Let's next enumerate the blobs themselves. Copy pasting that code and then doing some formatting. So here we have taken as a parameter the client, as well as a string that has the name of the container that we're interested in. And then we get a container client. So this is different from a storage account client, right? So we create that for the container that we were given. And then we call the get blobs async method on that. That will give us an iterable of all of the blobs that are in that container. And we're making a for each loop over each of those blobs, and then writing the name of each blob. All right. So back up to our main method. Let's create a existing container name here. And our container name was raster graphics, right? And then let's call our enumerate blobs async method with the client. All right, so this was service client, yeah, service client, and then the existing container. All right, so let's see if that worked. All right, perfect. So we got everything else same way as previously, but now we're searching the raster graphics container, and in there we found the one blob that we uploaded earlier, graph.jpg. We can also create new containers using the SDK here. So we're going to do that next. We're going to create a method. Again, the keys are a bit weird on the virtual machine, but yeah. So creating a new method here that has two parameters, blob service client and a string. And then in it, we will again create a new container client. And then we will create container if in case it doesn't exist, right? I'm going to make it public access. And then we're going to write out what the name was, right? So we're creating a new container with the name given it this parameter. So back to the main method, and let's again create a variable for this, new container name, and let's call it vector graphics. Cool. And then let's call our get container async method with the service client and the new container name. Okay, now what is going on here is that the method that we created actually returns back a blob container client, right? So the one that we have just created here. So let's catch that over here. We might be using it. So blob container client, container client equals this one. Okay, so now we got it saved for us. So again, go to the terminal, see what happens. So a new container vector graphics text got out of here. So we might think that it has actually created it. There's an easy way to check though, because remember our earlier code would list all of the containers. So let's just run the same command again. You can see now it says vector graphics over here in that listing as well. So it did create those. All right. So maybe let's upload another file. We're going to do that from the portal. We want it to go to storage count. There we go. And containers. And even here you can see that there are now 3 containers created by us. The last one was called vector graphics. And then we're uploading another thing that I almost forgot was that you can see the anonymous access level here is blob instead of private. So this container can have publicly available blobs in it. So we're going to upload. We're going to go for the graph.svg this time. That is vector graphics. And then we upload. And now it's there. So let's go back to our code and add yet another method. There we go. So what this one does is it takes a container client as a parameter, as well as a string with the name, it's almost visible, blob name, okay? And then it creates a blob client, okay? So blob client is what we need to access individual blobs based on that blob name. If the blob does not exist, then we'll write out that the blob was not found. And otherwise, so thus, if it exists, we write out the URI of that blob, and we return back the blob client, as you can see here, signature of the method as well. All right, so similarly as previously, go back to the main method, and then, oops, a bit tricky. Let's add a variable with the blob name, uploaded blob name, and I'll call it graph.svg, right? And then we call our method that returns a blob client. Get blob async, and then need the container client and upload it. Yeah. Normal thing that we could do here is, or that they're telling us to do here, is to write out the URI. Because down here, we're saying blob found URI, and then returning the blob client, and then here, we're saying the same thing again. Interesting. Okay, so let's save. So everything works as it should. Vector graphics is there. We have found the graph.svg in vector graphics, and we have accessed the URI from within the method, as well as using that blob client from the main method as well. So let's just navigate to this URL. Yes, open. And there we can see the graph.svg. And why is it available? Well, because we said that this container is public. So that's why it's available without keys. All right, that's everything in this lab. In case you're using your own account, please remember to delete the resource group, storage media, that we used for this lab, to make sure that you delete all of the infrastructure that we have created. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next lab. Till then.